In front of the house, my sister left a note saying, "Older sister, not ready to be a mother," and then left 5 malnourished children for me and moved to Los Angeles. 15 years later, my sister returned to demand her children. My sister said she wasn't built to be a mom and dumped her 5 kids on my doorstep. I spent the next 15 years doing everything for them. Last week, they pooled their money to give me a brand new G-Wagon. My sister just found out. She called me screaming that they're her kids and her reward, and is now threatening to sue me if I don't give her the car. I just laughed and hung up. Now I, 42-year-old Alexandra Alex Martinez, have a sister. Let's call her Diane Rodriguez, 48. Growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, Diane was the golden child of our Mexican-American family. Prettier, more popular, and undeniably our parents' favorite. She was the kind of girl who could charm anyone with a smile and somehow always got away with everything. While she was busy being the life of every quinceañera and dating the most popular boys at Central High School, I was the responsible one who studied hard, saved my allowance, and planned for the future. Diane floated through high school and Arizona State University on her charm and beauty, while I worked 2 part-time jobs to put myself through the nursing program at Phoenix College. Our relationship wasn't terrible, just different. We moved in separate circles, but maintained a sisterly bond. I admired her confidence, and I think she appreciated my stability, even if she'd never admit it. When she got pregnant at 23 with her first child, Emma, I was genuinely happy for her. Despite our differences, I stood by her side in the delivery room at Banner Desert Medical Center, holding her hand through every contraction. I did the same for the twins, Jackson and Lillian, 2 years later, and again for the youngest 2, Noah and Sophia Zoe, who came 3 years after that. 5 kids in about 6 years. I became Tia Alex and cherished my role in their lives. Our parents passed away when Emma was just a toddler, Mom from cancer, and Dad from a heart attack barely 6 months later. With no other close family around, Diane and I only had each other to lean on. I think losing our parents so young affected Diane more than she'd ever let on. She'd always been the favorite, always had their approval and attention. Without them, she seemed a bit lost, though she'd never admit it. For a while, Diane seemed to be managing motherhood reasonably well. She had married Roberto Rob Chen, the father of her first 3 children, who worked steadily in construction for one of the big home building companies in the Phoenix metro area. He wasn't a bad guy. A bit rough around the edges, but hardworking and genuinely affectionate with the kids. I remember holiday gatherings where he'd have all 5 kids piled on him watching Christmas movies or summer barbecues, where he patiently taught Emma how to properly flip carne asada. They lived in a modest but comfortable 3-bedroom house in Glendale, about 30 minutes from my apartment in Central Phoenix. But things began unraveling when the younger 2 were about 3 and 4 years old. Rob's casual drinking evolved into a serious problem. Not uncommon in the construction industry, especially during the 2008 housing crash when work became sporadic. I started noticing empty Tecate bottles hidden around their house when I visited. Diane, who had always loved attention and socializing, began disappearing with increasing frequency. First for hours, then for entire weekends, leaving the kids with neighbors, friends, or whoever would take them. I stepped in as much as my nursing schedule at St. Joseph's Hospital allowed taking the kids for weekends or school holidays, but I had my own life and responsibilities. I tried talking to Diane about it several times, but she'd get defensive and accuse me of judging her. "You have no idea how hard this is, Alex," she'd say. "You get to go home to your quiet apartment. I never get a break, never." I suggested therapy parenting classes, maybe AA for Rob. She'd agree, half-heartedly, but never follow through. I watched with growing concern as the kids started showing signs of neglect. Emma taking on more parental responsibilities, the twins becoming unusually quiet and anxious, Noah developing behavioral issues at preschool, little Zoe clinging to me desperately whenever I visited. Then came that rainy Tuesday in October 15 years ago. I remember it with crystal clarity because it changed everything. I was working night shifts in the ICU at the time. It had been a particularly brutal shift. We'd lost 2 patients, one of them a young motorcycle accident victim not much older than me. I had just gotten home around 7:00 a.m., exhausted to my bones and emotionally drained. I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of wine, my post-night shift ritual, judge me if you want, and was about to collapse into bed when my doorbell rang. There stood Diane, with all 5 kids huddled behind her like a line of ducklings. They were ages 4 through 10. Their little faces confused and scared, clutching backpacks and garbage bags stuffed with clothes. It was raining, unusual for Phoenix in October, and none of them had proper raincoats. They were already soaked from the short walk from her car to my door. Diane herself looked different. Her hair was freshly dyed blonde, she wore more makeup than usual, and she had on a new outfit I'd never seen before. There was a strange, manic energy about her. "I can't do this anymore, Alex," she said, avoiding eye contact. She kept glancing back at a car idling at the curb. Not her usual Honda Pilot, but a sporty red Mustang. "I wasn't built to be a mom. I need to find myself." I was so stunned I couldn't form words for a moment. The kids were silent as if they'd been warned not to speak. Before I could process what was happening, she pushed a crumpled note into my hand, some hastily scribbled nonsense about temporary guardianship, and started backing away. "Wait," I finally managed, grabbing her arm. "What about Rob? Where are you going? How long will you be gone?" "Diane, we need to talk about this properly. You can't just drop them off like this." She yanked her arm away. "Rob's gone. He left last month, been staying with his brother up in Flagstaff. Look, this isn't forever okay. I just need some space to figure things out. I've met someone who gets me." She tossed a casual wave over her shoulder as she hurried back to the waiting car where I could now see a man in the driver's seat. "I'll call you in a couple weeks. Thanks, sis. I owe you big time." And just like that, she was gone. The red Mustang pulled away, splashing through a puddle that sprayed the already wet children even more. I stood there in my scrubs, still smelling of hospital antiseptic, sleep-deprived, and now completely blindsided with 5 shell-shocked children on my doorstep. Emma, the oldest at 10, took my hand and squeezed it. "Don't worry, Tia Alex. We can help. I know how to make cereal for everybody, and I can get the little ones dressed for school." I think that's the moment my heart both shattered and grew 3 sizes at once. This 10-year-old girl trying to be brave, trying to make it easier for me when her entire world had just been upended again. "Come in, mijos," I said, finding my voice. "Let's get you dry and warm first, then we'll figure everything out." That first night, I put the girls in my queen-sized bed and made a nest of blankets on the living room floor for the boys. I called in sick for my next shift, something I never did, and spent the night making lists, searching for schools in my district, figuring out childcare options that would work with my schedule, calculating budgets, and trying not to have a complete breakdown. I remember sitting on my bathroom floor at 3:00 a.m., silently crying so the kids wouldn't hear me, wondering how in the world I was going to manage this. Those couple weeks, Diane promised, stretched into 15 years. During the first month, she called twice, both times asking me to wire her money because she was in a tight spot. By month 3, I learned through a mutual friend that she'd moved to Los Angeles with her new boyfriend, some aspiring musician she'd met at a bar in Scottsdale. 6 months in, all of the kids were calling me Mama, though I gently reminded them that Diane was their mother. As for Rob, he had completely vanished. Last I heard through the grapevine, he was bouncing between rehab centers in New Mexico, having lost his license after a 3rd DUI. I won't pretend that raising 5 kids as a single nurse in Phoenix was easy. Those early days were a blur of exhaustion and logistical nightmares. My 1-bedroom apartment obviously wouldn't work for 6 people, so I had to break my lease, goodbye security deposit, and find a 3-bedroom house in Maryvale with a punishing mortgage. I switched from night shifts to day shifts, giving up the premium night pay I'd been saving for a down payment on my own home. Sundays, I picked up extra weekend shifts whenever possible to make ends meet. We shopped at Goodwill, cut coupons like it was an Olympic sport, learned to meal prep, and stretched every dollar until it screamed. I became an expert at finding free community activities. The Phoenix Public Library's programs South Mountain Park hikes free days at the Children's Museum of Phoenix. I navigated WIC and SNAP programs and bartered with other parents for hand-me-downs. Christmas gifts were modest but thoughtful. Birthdays featured homemade tres leches cakes rather than catered parties. Vacations meant camping at Lost Dutchman State Park rather than trips to Disneyland. But the financial strain was actually the easy part. The emotional labor was what nearly broke me. 5 traumatized children, each processing abandonment in their own way. Emma became hyper-responsible, mothering her siblings and trying too hard to be perfect. The twins developed separation anxiety, panicking if I was even 5 minutes late picking them up from after-school care. Noah's anger exploded in aggression at school, earning him suspensions and worried calls from teachers. Zoe regressed, wetting the bed until she was 7 and clinging to me like a shadow. I learned to braid hair, attend parent-teacher conferences, coach Little League, navigate the hormonal minefields of adolescence, apply for college financial aid, and handle 1,000 other parenting duties through trial and error. Often more error than I care to admit. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was ruining these kids' lives because I had no idea what I was doing. For the first few years, Diane would call on major holidays and occasionally send birthday cards with $10 bills tucked inside. She'd make vague promises about visiting real soon and tell the kids how much she missed them. But the calls grew less frequent, and the promises remained empty. She never contributed any meaningful financial support or showed genuine interest in their school achievements, health issues, or emotional development. Meanwhile, those 5 frightened children grew and transformed before my eyes. Emma, now 25, channeled her nurturing instincts into a career in education. She earned her master's degree from Northern Arizona University and now teaches 3rd grade at a Title I school in South Phoenix, where she has a special soft spot for kids from difficult home situations. She's engaged to a kind-hearted pediatric nurse she met through me, and they're planning a small wedding next spring. The twins Jackson and Lillian, 23, are finishing college this year. Jackson is in computer engineering at ASU with a job already lined up at a tech startup in Tempe, and Lillian is double majoring in business and psychology. They're still incredibly close, still finish each other's sentences, but they've grown into distinct individuals with their own dreams. Noah, 20, was my toughest challenge for many years. His anger issues required therapy, which we could barely afford, but was worth every penny. In high school, an incredible shop teacher at Carl Hayden High School took him under his wing and introduced him to electrical work that channeled his intense energy into something productive. Now he's thriving at Gateway Community College, maintaining a 3.8 GPA. The chip on his shoulder has mostly melted away, revealing a wickedly funny and deeply loyal young man. And Zoe, my baby, at 19, is following in my footsteps in the nursing program at Phoenix College. She still has moments of that childhood insecurity, still calls me every day without fail. But she's blossoming into a compassionate caregiver with a particular gift for connecting with elderly patients. I've attended every graduation, science fair, soccer game, and academic ceremony. I've helped with college applications, taught them to drive, terrifying nursed them through chickenpox, broken bones, first heartbreaks, and friend drama. We've had our struggles. Lord knows the teenage years nearly broke me several times over. But through it all, we became a real family. Through everything, I tried never to speak ill of Diane. When the kids asked why their mom left, I explained that some people aren't emotionally equipped for parenthood, that it wasn't their fault, and that Diane had her own struggles. As they got older and their questions became more pointed, I tried to be truthful without being vindictive. Your mom loves you in her own way, but she wasn't able to put your needs first. That's about her limitations, not about your worthiness. As teenagers, several of them tried reaching out to Diane independently, especially around significant milestones like high school graduations. She'd respond enthusiastically via Instagram or Snapchat, making grand promises about reconnecting and visiting, but those plans never materialized. After each disappointment, I'd be there with Haagen-Dazs and a shoulder to cry on, trying to help them process the complicated grief of having a mother who was neither fully present nor fully gone. Last month was my 42nd birthday. I've never been one for big celebrations. Raising 5 kids on a nurse's salary meant learning to keep expectations modest. Normally, we just have a casual dinner at home, maybe with a store-bought cake from Fry's and a few thoughtful but inexpensive gifts. But this year, the kids were acting strangely secretive. They insisted I take the entire weekend off, not easy in healthcare, and told me to dress up on Saturday evening. Emma came over early to help me get ready, fussing over my hair and suggesting I wear my good dress, the one I usually saved for job interviews and weddings. "What's going on?" I kept asking, increasingly suspicious, as she applied more makeup than I'd worn in the last decade combined. "Just trust us, Mama," was all she would say with a mysterious smile. They blindfolded me, which I protested vigorously, I'm not a fan of surprises, and drove me to an unknown location. The car ride was filled with muffled giggles and shushing sounds. When they finally stopped and helped me out of the car, I could hear the sounds of indoor voices and detected the distinctive scent of new leather. When they removed the blindfold, we were standing in a gleaming Mercedes dealership in Scottsdale, and there in front of me was a brand new midnight blue G-Wagon with an enormous red bow on the hood. I laughed, assuming it was an elaborate joke. "Very funny guys. Great photo op. Now where are we really having dinner?" The 5 of them stood in a line, all dressed in their best clothes, all wearing identical expressions of barely contained excitement. Emma stepped forward. "This isn't a joke, Mama. It's yours." Jackson handed me a set of keys. "We've all been saving for 3 years. Every bonus, every extra shift, every tax refund." Lillian added, "You gave up everything for us. Your apartment, your savings, your social life. You deserve something just for you." I stood there utterly speechless, keys dangling from my finger. The G-Wagon had been my dream car since forever, something I'd mentioned in passing years ago while watching a car commercial. "Now that's a proper vehicle," I'd said with a laugh. "Maybe when I win the Powerball." I never thought I'd actually own one. "I can't accept this." I finally managed to say, tears already streaming down my face. "It's too much. You all need to save for your futures." Noah, my practical one, shook his head firmly. "It's already paid for. Taxes, registration, insurance, everything. We set up a fund to cover it all for the first 2 years, and we can all still pay our bills," he reassured me with a smile. "We budgeted carefully, just like you taught us. We've been planning this since my high school graduation." I completely broke down in the middle of that dealership, ugly crying and hugging each of them through my tears. The salespeople pretended not to notice, discreetly stepping away to give us privacy. I couldn't believe these 5 young people who had endured so much and worked so hard had done something this extravagant for me. The sales manager finally approached with paperwork, confirming that yes, everything was paid for, and yes, this was really happening. When I slid into the driver's seat for the first time, inhaling that intoxicating new car smell, I felt like I was dreaming. We took about 100 photos, including one with all 6 of us that now sits framed on my mantle, and then went out for a celebratory dinner at Kai Restaurant at Wild Horse Pass. Far nicer than our usual haunts. That night, after everyone had gone home and I was alone, I sat in my new car in the driveway for almost an hour, alternating between happy tears and disbelieving laughter. For someone who had spent 15 years putting everyone else first, it was overwhelming to be on the receiving end of such generosity. Everything was perfect for about a week. I babied that car like it was made of crystal, parking it far from other vehicles in lots, and developing an elaborate cleaning routine that the kids teased me about mercilessly. "Mama, you don't need to wipe the dashboard every time you get out," Jackson would say, rolling his eyes. But I couldn't help it. The G-Wagon represented not just luxury, but the love and appreciation of the 5 people who mattered most to me. Then came the call from Diane. This was unusual in itself, as we barely speak these days. Maybe once or twice a year at most, usually when she needs something or around Christmas. I answered with some concern, wondering if something was wrong. "Hello, Diane. What the actual fuck, Alex?" Her voice was so loud, I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She was clearly in a rage, like I'd never heard before. "Excuse me, don't play dumb with me. I just saw Emma's Instagram post about the car. My children bought you a G-Wagon." Now it made sense. I should mention that Diane had reappeared on social media about 5 years ago, suddenly interested in maintaining an online relationship with her children. She follows all their accounts but rarely engages beyond occasional comments about how much they resemble her or breezy messages on birthdays. "Yes, they did," I replied, keeping my voice deliberately calm. "It was a very thoughtful birthday gift." "Those are my kids!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with fury. "My kids that I gave birth to. If anyone deserves a luxury vehicle from them, it's me. I carried them for 9 months each." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Diane, you haven't been part of their daily lives for 15 years. You've sent maybe a dozen birthday cards and contributed $0 to their upbringing." "That doesn't matter. I'm their mother. Blood is blood. They're my children, and that should be my reward for bringing them into this world." Then she really went off the deep end. "I'm calling my attorney tomorrow. You poisoned my children against me. You stole my family from me. You owe me that car, or at least half its value since I'm their real parent. I'll sue you for parental alienation. I'll take you to court for everything you've got." I couldn't help it. I started laughing. The sheer audacity was almost impressive. Here was a woman who had abandoned her children on my doorstep 15 years ago, contributed nothing to their upbringing, and now felt entitled to a gift they had given me. "Good luck with that," I said, still chuckling. "I have 15 years of documentation, including a guardianship document in your handwriting, by the way. The kids are all adults now. They make their own decisions about their money and their relationships. But please waste your money on legal fees. Let me know how that works out for you." She launched into another tirade of threats and obscenities, calling me names that I won't repeat here. I simply said, "Goodbye, Diane," and hung up. My hands were shaking afterward. Not from fear, but from anger. After all these years, she still had the power to get under my skin. I poured myself a glass of wine and tried to calm down, reminding myself that her threats were almost certainly empty. Still, the call bothered me more than I wanted to admit. I didn't immediately tell the kids about the call, not wanting to taint their beautiful gesture with this ugliness. But Diane took care of that herself. She started messaging each of them individually. First with guilt trips about forgetting their real mother, then with increasingly unhinged demands about her entitlement to the car. The kids were initially hurt and confused, but that quickly transformed into anger. They conference called me that evening to discuss what happened. Emma, always the protective one, was livid. "She abandons us for 15 years and then thinks she deserves our gift to you. Is she delusional?" Jackson and Lillian had already blocked her across all platforms. Noah, usually the quietest of the bunch, told us he'd informed her exactly where she could shove her demands. In colorful language I won't repeat here. And sweet Zoe simply stated, "You're our real mom, the only one who matters." I'll admit, those words brought me to tears again. The next morning, I received an email from Diane with contact information for her lawyer, who, after a quick Google search, turned out to be a general practice attorney in a Scottsdale strip mall specializing in real estate closings with a website that looked like it was designed in 2003. She formally demanded either the car itself or $150,000 in compensation for emotional damages and parental alienation. I sat in my beautiful G-Wagon, sipping coffee and contemplating my options. Part of me wanted to hire the most aggressive family lawyer I could find and countersue for 15 years of child support. Another part wanted to respond with nothing but a glitter bomb to her LA address. And part of me considered taking the high road and simply continuing to ignore her as I had for so many years. But I can't deny that a small, petty part of me was enjoying this. The sister who always had everything handed to her on a silver platter, who abandoned her responsibilities when parenthood became inconvenient, was now furious that those same children had grown into compassionate, successful adults who love the person who actually raised them. That, I realized, was the sweetest revenge possible. I wasn't expecting such an overwhelming response to my post. Thank you for all the supportive comments, messages, and awards. It's heartwarming to know there are so many people who understand and validate our family's journey. Many of you asked about possible legal actions against Diane, and I wanted to address that. We're exploring our options carefully. As several commenters pointed out, I have substantial documentation, the original guardianship note, which I had notarized a week after she left, just in case, text message records, emails, and 15 years of school and medical records listing me as the children's guardian. I even kept a detailed log of the few occasions Diane sent holiday money, which did happen maybe 5 to 6 times over 15 years, usually $20 per child, and transcripts of phone conversations where she promised to visit, but never did. Someone asked if I ever legally adopted the kids. The answer is no, though not for lack of trying. When they were younger, I consulted an attorney about formal adoption, but Diane would have needed to relinquish her parental rights, and she refused. I think she enjoyed the idea of motherhood, just not the reality of it. She wanted to keep her mom title without any of the work. By the time the kids were teenagers, they felt the paperwork wouldn't change our family dynamic either way. As for current developments, Diane has been blowing up my phone with increasingly desperate messages. I've muted her but continue saving screenshots of everything. Her latest offer is that I add her name to the car's title and allow her to borrow it whenever she visits, which has happened exactly twice in 15 years, both times unannounced and chaotic. The kids decided to respond as a united front. After discussing it together, they sent a joint email stating 3 clear points. They're adults who made their own decision about a gift for the person who raised them. They will always acknowledge her as their biological mother, but are deeply hurt by her current behavior. They will terminate all contact if she pursues any legal action against me. Noah, my analytical one, added a special attachment, a detailed spreadsheet breaking down the approximate cost of raising 5 children from elementary school through college, including housing, food, healthcare, education, extracurricular activities, etc. He included adjustments for inflation and regional cost of living. The final tally came to just over $1.7 million. His note said if she wanted to discuss parental rewards, she was welcome to reimburse me for that amount first, and then they could talk about the car. I've never been prouder of their maturity and solidarity. It's been a week since everything went down, and I wanted to share how things resolved. Diane's lawyer sent an official-looking but legally meaningless letter demanding the vehicle. The document was full of typos and vague threats citing irrelevant statutes and making bizarre claims about maternal property rights. I forwarded it to an actual family law attorney, a parent of one of my former patients who graciously offered to help. She responded with what the kids are now calling the nuclear option letter, a comprehensive breakdown of Diane's abandonment, the financial implications, and the fact that the children are all legal adults who can give their money to whomever they choose. The letter concluded by stating that if Diane pursued this further, we would countersue for back child support, which in Arizona has no statute of limitations when there's documented willful abandonment. My attorney friend included a preliminary calculation of what that might amount to for 5 children over 15 years plus interest. The figure exceeded $300,000. We haven't heard a peep from Diane since that letter arrived. The kids and I had a family dinner this weekend where we agreed not to let this drama overshadow our happiness. We looked through old photo albums and shared stories, including some good memories from before Diane left. It was healing for all of us in unexpected ways. Emma mentioned that she'd felt guilty sometimes about loving me as her mom, as if she was betraying Diane. Noah admitted he'd spent years angry, not just at Diane, but at himself, wondering if his behavior as a child had contributed to her leaving. These were thoughts they'd never expressed before, and it opened up a beautiful, tearful conversation about family forgiveness and moving forward. Zoe asked if she could post a family photo of the 6 of us with the G-Wagon captioned, "Family is about who shows up, not just DNA." With my blessing, it's now her most liked post ever. As for me, I've taken some vacation time to enjoy a road trip in my beautiful new car. Jackson and Lillian are joining me for part of it, and we're visiting several national parks we've always wanted to see. The G-Wagon is performing beautifully on mountain roads, and the looks on my kids' faces when we reached the Grand Canyon at sunrise yesterday made every sleepless night, every financial struggle, every moment of self-doubt over the past 15 years absolutely worth it. Life isn't perfect, and our path hasn't been conventional. I never expected to be a mother, let alone a mother of 5. There were days I was sure I was failing them, nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I was enough. Raising them wasn't always a Hallmark movie. We had epic fights, slammed doors, teenage rebellion, and all the normal family dramas intensified by the abandonment issues they all carried. But looking at these 5 remarkable humans now, I wouldn't trade my journey for anything. They call me Mama, not because I gave birth to them, but because I showed up every day. I made lunches and checked homework and kissed scrapes and celebrated victories and mourned losses alongside them. No court ruling or biological claim can diminish the family we've built together. Thank you all for your support and encouragement. It helped me realize I have nothing to feel guilty about and everything to be proud of. P.S. To the Redditor who suggested I get a custom license plate that says, 5 kids mom. That's brilliant, and I'm absolutely doing it. The plate has been ordered and should arrive next week.